Hello everyone. This week we're going to talk about wind and solar. So most of you, when you think about solar, this is what you're looking at. This is what you think about. It is these solar panels. These are solar photovoltaic panels, and they are designed to be placed on a roof or out in the field or so on, and they produce electricity directly from the sun. This is only one type of solar. When you are working on your proposal, I want you to be clear on what you are thinking about, whether it's solar photovoltaics or some of the other types of solar that we are talking about this week. And again, I want you to think about, hey, are you thinking about solar on someone's roof? Are you thinking about, hey, these large solar installations that might be out in a field somewhere? Do you have the land to accommodate this amount of solar panels on a large field somewhere out on a field? Or are you going to encourage homeowners themselves to install solar panels on their roofs? Again, that's just the first type of solar, but there's also other types of solar. And next we're going to talk about solar thermal. So you do have quite a bit of reading about solar thermal, and I'm going to give you a couple images here to take a look at what this could be. Solar thermal is just utilizing the sun's rays, the sun's heat, to produce energy. And this can be done in a couple different ways. And one is right here, putting panels on your roof that instead of making solar electricity, you're making solar hot water. So these tend to be tubes. They're going to be evacuated tubes, and they will traditionally be filled with some kind of glycol. So this is antifreeze, just like you have in your car. So those of us that live in the Northeast, we know it's going to freeze sometimes. We don't want to put water in there directly because it could freeze, and that would really be terrible in the morning when I want to take a hot shower if my solar hot water heater froze up. So we would put some kind of glycol in there, and you would still have a tank somewhere to store the hot water. So the antifreeze runs through these tubes, and it comes into your home, and you have a heat exchanger. And that heat exchanger is going to exchange the heat with your water so you can store the hot water. Hot water heating in your home tends to be about 15 to 20% of your total utility bill. Hot water is expensive, especially those of you who have a lot of people in your home. If there's teenagers in your house, you know that costs a lot of money to make hot water. So using a solar thermal panel here, you can use the sun to produce that hot water. You would still have a hot water tank just like you do now, and you might have a backup hot water tank, but it's really rethinking how we do hot water. Most of us, our hot water heater is in our basement, and that tends to be the coldest part in our house. And like I said, it costs a lot of money to heat and store hot water. So traditionally you might have to move your hot water up into the attic or near your roof or so on. This was very popular in the 80s, and then there were a lot of unscrupulous people installing this. So I've heard from my father even that, oh, this doesn't work. That's snake oil. It doesn't work. It works very well. It's just there was a lot of people out in the industry that were doing this that did not have any right to be doing this, that weren't certified. There was no certification. They were just running around putting panels up on people's roofs and pretending it worked when it didn't. This is more of a plumbing issue. There is not a whole lot of moving parts here. It's just running your plumbing in a different way. Another type of solar thermal is this guy right here, these power towers. You might have seen them. I think there was a James Bond movie where it was in. I know the movie Sahara, there was a big part on this, where we have these mirrors, and they tend to be out in the desert, and they're reflecting the sun's rays up to a central point right up here. So this power tower. Now what's different about this is we are storing heat. Heat is actually very easy to be stored. Electricity is very difficult and expensive to be stored. Heat we can store, and we can use it whenever we want. What can we do with that heat? Well, we can use it directly like we were with our solar thermal panels, but actually here we can store that heat and use it to make steam whenever we need electricity. So just like with just about every energy source, nuclear, fossil fuels, we need to make steam to turn a turbine. Turning that turbine creates electricity. So we can store that heat, and whenever we need electricity, we can use it. One of the disadvantages here is we need a lot of space. So that's something to consider when you're writing your proposals. Do you have a lot of space to install this large scale solar thermal tower, or might you be interested in more residential or smaller scale systems? This is another type of solar thermal, and we would have a parabolic trawl. So in here we have a tube. This tube is going to have an oil. Just like over here we'd have a salt. Both of these have a higher heat capacity, which means it can store a lot more heat than water can. We know water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. We can't store that much heat, but something with a higher boiling point can store a lot more heat. And again, we'll have this oil, it goes to a central location, and we can use that heat whenever we need to. So that is solar thermal. Next, we want to talk about another type of solar, passive solar. What is passive solar? Essentially using our design to use the sunlight either to help with daylighting, to help with heating, and so on. So when we're designing a system, we live in the northern hemisphere, we want to design to have south-facing windows. These properties that have south-facing windows, we can use that heat and that light in to help heat our home or daylighting. In schools and so on, you can think about how you're designing your property so that you need less light during the day. Schools in particular, like K through 12 schools that are only operating during the daytime, that 7 to 3, that we can use daylighting to cut back on our energy use a lot. So that is passive solar. And the last type of solar I want to talk about is building integrated solar. So building integrated is another design consideration, and is using the building itself to produce the electricity. So here we can see we have panels along some of the buildings. So, it looks like we have a deck here, but also we can have solar windows. What is this? Yes, you can produce, there are such things as solar windows. You can produce electricity in regular windows. These have a lower efficiency than traditional solar panels, but again, you can get some efficiency there. There's such things as solar paint. There's a lot of ways that we can integrate solar. This is an atrium that they put panels up through the atrium. We can design our buildings to produce some electricity. Now, I mentioned that solar paint, solar windows, those types of things have lower efficiency. And this is a common misconception we have about the solar industry. Well, they're not that efficient. And it is true that commercial solar panels tend to be about 20% efficient, maybe up to 25% efficient, the best that you can buy. Cheaper ones, 15, 18% efficient. Well, we're not getting 100% efficiency. What does that mean? Of all the sunlight that hits our roof, we're only able to convert maybe 20% of that into electricity. Well, if we compare that to traditional combustion sources, power plants tend to be about 45% efficient. So at best, the best power plant out there, best coal-fired power plant, the best natural gas-fired power plant. Your car that you put gasoline in is only about 10 to 15% efficient. So this is the best research cell efficiencies. This is put out by NREL every year, and we can see the best efficient solar panel right now is about 47% efficient. We keep getting a little bit better, but this is not the solar panel that you can buy today. This is what the best case scenario in the labs right now. So commercially available, we tend to be right around here, 20% efficient. So I wanted to show some examples of using this building integrated solar. This is Eagles Stadium in Philadelphia. And if you drive up 95, if you've ever been in Philadelphia, you come across that and you're like, there's a whole bunch of solar panels here at a 90-degree angle, straight up on the right off 95 on the stadium. This is a LEED Gold stadium. If you think about how big stadiums are, that's pretty crazy that they could get LEED on that. So they're creating about a third of the stadium's energy from these solar panels. They also have wind turbines up along here. And this is kind of interesting. And if you think about wind turbines, you don't necessarily think about these things. Let me pull up a better picture of them. So here you can see these little egg beater things. These are wind turbines at Eagle Stadium. Again, here's some better pictures of this. When we think about wind turbines, we tend to think about these big sweeping things out in the Midwest that turn like this. A lot of people, I know a lot of my friends call them windmills, you know, the Don Quixote type windmills you might be tilting at, but wind turbines can come in a lot of different examples. Wind turbines, you can have small residential type systems. You can have these 3 blades. There's no rhyme or reason whether you have 3 blades. You can have 1 blade. You can have 7 blades. This is a type of wind turbine as well. These egg beater kind of things. There's all different kinds of designs of wind turbines, and these are smaller scale systems. We can have residential type for homes. So this is a company in Denmark that they have these smaller residential So here are some examples of how big these wind turbines would be. So they're not as huge as the ones you would see out in West Texas or so on. We'll see here in a minute, but they're for a more residential scale. We don't see this too much in the U.S. We don't see more residential. We might see a little hobbyist wind turbines. Sometimes schools have these smaller wind turbines for research or so on, but we don't typically see a residential wind turbine so much here in the U.S. Let's see, let's go back. But we may see these large-scale wind farms, and depending where you live, you might see these all over the place. We see them a lot in the Midwest. Germany and Denmark have a ton of these. The Midwest, West Texas, tons and tons and tons of wind turbines. So it's something to think about when you're coming up with your plan, is what type of wind and solar are you going to include this week? And as you're including that, be sure to identify, are you talking about residential or commercial scale? Are you talking about large fields of wind turbines or large scale fields of solar panels? And you need to think about your geographic region. Is wind going to work in your region? Is solar going to work in your region? So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy reading and learning about wind and solar this week.